Hello, dear friends. Have you ever noticed that even when surrounded by people, a part of you still feels isolated, almost untouched by the warmth of companionship? This sensation, often described as loneliness, can seem overwhelming. Yet within the teachings of Buddhism, we discover that loneliness might not be the enemy we imagine it to be. Instead, it can be a powerful teacher, guiding us to reconnect with our truest selves. Take a moment and reflect on those times you felt painfully alone. You might have been scrolling endlessly on your phone, or even chatting with colleagues, yet your heart felt distant and unheard. Buddhism suggests that this loneliness arises from our attachment to fleeting perceptions and the belief that we exist as separate beings. We become so caught in comparisons and self-judgment that we forget our inherent capacity for boundless compassion and interconnectedness. Imagine gently sitting in meditation, the hush of a quiet room surrounding you. At first, the loneliness feels raw, almost unbearable. But as you breathe in and out, you begin to realize that these feelings are not trying to harm you. They are simply signals, reminding you to return to your own presence, to witness your thoughts without judgment, and to allow yourself the grace of self-compassion. In this space, loneliness transforms from a cold emptiness into a doorway for deeper understanding. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent, including our sense of isolation. When we stop fighting loneliness and instead embrace it as a natural part of our human experience, we discover an unexpected softness in our hearts. It is through this acceptance that true connection blossoms, both within ourselves and with those around us. When we see that every being experiences moments of longing, our empathy grows and we feel less alone. Each time loneliness arises, it presents an opportunity to practice mindfulness and loving kindness. We can mentally offer warmth to ourselves and extend that same compassion to every living being. Gradually, this practice dissolves our imagined barriers and reveals the truth of our interdependence. We find that being alone does not have to mean feeling lonely, and genuine solitude can become a source of deep peace and renewal. So let loneliness be a teacher. Let it guide you beyond the boundaries of separation into a realm of awakened presence and compassion. Embrace this tender feeling with courage and understanding, and watch as it transforms into a powerful reminder of our shared human bond. Have you ever felt a subtle ache deep within? A quiet discontent that seems impossible to shake? This feeling, so delicate yet persistent, is part of what Buddhism calls dukkha. Often translated as suffering, dukkha encompasses everything from profound grief to the faint sense that something in our lives is just not right. Loneliness, one of its many faces, creeps in when we feel disconnected, unacknowledged, or incomplete. It whispers that we lack something essential and that perhaps there is nobody who truly understands us. This loneliness can be both overwhelming and strangely familiar. We seek out friendships, romantic partners, and social media connections, hoping each interaction will soothe our restless hearts. Yet, as the Buddha taught in the Four Noble Truths, our suffering is deeply tied to clinging and craving. When we crave reassurance, validation, or belonging from others, we become entangled in a cycle of hope and disappointment. People and circumstances inevitably change. Relationships end, friends move away, and situations once comforting might suddenly feel empty. Because nothing is permanent, our reliance on external sources for happiness leaves us feeling incomplete and vulnerable. But what if loneliness can actually guide us inward? What if instead of running from it, we learn from it, allowing its presence to illuminate the places in our hearts that yearn for greater understandings? By seeing loneliness as a mirror, we recognize the attachments that underlie our dissatisfaction. Perhaps we yearn not for another person's company, but for a deeper connection with ourselves. Perhaps we crave the warm acceptance we can only discover by sitting quietly with our own thoughts and emotions. In Buddhism, turning our gaze inward helps us untangle the knots of craving and free ourselves from the burdens of constant longing. Through meditation and mindful reflection, we begin to witness our inner world with compassion and clarity. We see loneliness not as an adversary, but as an invitation to examine how we treat ourselves and others. Over time, our resistance softens, and we accept loneliness as part of the human condition, a sign urging us to nurture an authentic relationship with our own heart. When we embrace loneliness in this way, it transforms from a nagging emptiness into a path towards self-awareness and genuine peace. Rather than seeking external solutions, we discover that our wholeness already exists within, patiently waiting for us to notice it. Here, in the quiet spaces of honest introspection, we find that the very loneliness we once feared becomes a gentle teacher, reminding us that true completeness arises when we stop searching for fulfillment outside and begin to cultivate it within. Have you ever felt that quiet ache inside? The voice that tells you nobody truly sees or understands you. Loneliness can feel isolating, yet according to Buddhism, it arises from a simple misunderstanding. We think of ourselves as separate from everyone else, but the truth is that every moment of our existence is woven into an immense tapestry of interconnected causes and conditions. This is the principle of dependent origination, or pratītyasamutpāda. It reminds us that nothing stands alone, just like a single drop of rain cannot exist without the clouds, and a flower cannot bloom without the sun, the soil, and the hands that nurtured its seeds. Take a moment to imagine a tiny seed sprouting in the dark earth. That seed depends on the warmth of the sun, the coolness of water, and the nourishment of soil. Over time, it becomes a blossom whose beauty touches the heart of anyone who sees it. Your own life is just as intertwined with countless factors: family, friends, teachers, strangers, the air you breathe, and the food you eat. In each breath, you connect with the trees that produce oxygen. In each meal, you connect with the farmers who sowed and harvested crops. In each loving thought, you connect with all beings everywhere. Yet, loneliness persists when we cling to the idea that we are cut off, as though there is a fixed boundary encircling our individual identities. Buddhism teaches that this perception is an illusion. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to gently observe our thoughts and see how this illusion takes shape. We breathe in and out, noticing that each breath unites us with life itself. We practice gratitude, opening our hearts to recognize the countless ways the world supports us every day. From the morning light streaming through the window to the comforting warmth of a friend's voice. Loving kindness meditation, known as metta, allows us to send goodwill to ourselves and others. We begin with a simple intention. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful. Then we extend that wish to a friend, a stranger, even someone who has hurt us. Before long, our hearts soften, and the idea of an unbridgeable gulf between self and others starts to fade. We realize that underneath our fears and worries, there is a boundless capacity for empathy and compassion. True interconnection is not a distant spiritual concept. It is the reality of each passing moment. When we see this truth, loneliness loses its sharp edge. We are not as alone as we once imagined. The walls separating us from the world dissolve, replaced by the warmth of understanding that everything and everyone is part of a shared existence. In that realization, even the simplest act of kindness toward oneself or another can become a profound moment of spiritual communion. Have you ever felt a soft pull in your heart, urging you to step away from the endless commotion of everyday life? The modern world often warns us that being alone is something to fear, as though solitude were a sign of failure or loneliness. But in the teachings of Buddhism, solitude emerges as a precious gift, a sacred space where we can finally hear the whispers of our own mind and observe its hidden truths. Think of the Buddha himself. Before his enlightenment, he journeyed into the quiet realms of forests and mountains, seeking to understand the nature of suffering. Great Buddhist masters throughout history have chosen to spend time alone, not to flee from the world, but to look deeper into it. In solitude, we discover that our discomfort with being by ourselves may be the very thing that prevents us from truly knowing who we are at our core. Try this simple practice. The next time a wave of loneliness washes over you, pause and sit with it. allowing its sensations to be felt without judgment. Notice where in your body this feeling arises. Perhaps it settles in your chest, tight like a knot, or maybe it hums in the pit of your stomach. Gently watch your thoughts. Do they race through memories or regrets? Or do they cling to hopes of future distractions? The more you keep an open, compassionate gaze upon your loneliness, the more you realize it is not the harsh emptiness you once assumed. Instead, it becomes a doorway into your own inner landscape. In the spaciousness of solitude, you gain the freedom to reflect on your life without the pressures and opinions of others clouding your vision. You begin to perceive how your emotions come and go, like waves on the shore, and you see how much of your stress and fear arises from trying to constantly avoid these natural rhythms. Solitude grants you the liberty to breathe without rushing, to sit without worrying, to simply be. Over time, you may find that solitude offers profound peace. When you no longer confuse being alone with being lonely, you step into a world where the mind settles, the heart opens, and genuine understanding blossoms. This realization can be transformative. The stillness you once tried to escape becomes the very source of your clarity and strength. Far from isolating you, solitude can illuminate the warmth and connection that exist between all beings. By embracing solitude as a form of freedom, you discover that your sense of belonging no longer depends on external circumstances, but grows from the wellspring of peace within your own heart. Hello, dear friends. Today we explore the profound balance between solitude and connection in the light of Buddhist teachings. There is a sacred space within us that flourishes when we allow ourselves moments of quiet reflection. In that silence, we can truly observe the nature of our minds, let go of unnecessary judgments, and cultivate genuine self-awareness. This inner stillness is not a place of loneliness, but a sanctuary where wisdom begins to grow, yet human connection is also an essential part of our journey. In Buddhism, authentic relationships are rooted in compassion, presence, and mindful communication. It is not about how many messages light up our phones or how many names appear on our contact lists. Rather, it is about the sincerity and depth of the bonds we share. When we connect wholeheartedly, our relationships become channels of growth and support, inspiring us to practice kindness and understanding every day. The Buddha taught the importance of right speech, which guides us to speak with genuine kindness, honesty, and thoughtful intention. When we follow this path, our words become gentle bridges that unite hearts and minds. To truly uplift someone, we must learn to listen with full attention. We often rush through conversations, focusing more on what we want to say next than on what is being shared with us. But when we slow down, when we truly pause to absorb another person's words and emotions, we begin to foster a connection that transcends casual chatter. Cultivating awareness in communication allows us to create safer spaces for each other. In these spaces, we can share our fears and aspirations without the weight of judgment. Such openness encourages the kind of warmth that helps individuals feel valued and understood. This is how we transform ordinary interactions into soulful exchanges that leave a lasting imprint on our hearts. Seek out people who uplift your spirit and remind you of your own inner goodness. At the same time, be that source of support for others. A small act of compassion, a gentle word, or a patient ear can plant seeds of hope that blossom into a lifetime of meaningful connection. Every conversation can be a chance to practice empathy and understanding, breathing life into the belief that we are all on this path together. May you embrace solitude as a wellspring of insight and growth, and may you nurture relationships that mirror your highest aspirations. In this way, we honor both our individual journey and the collective tapestry of human connection, woven with threads of compassion, respect, and loving kindness toward all beings. Hello, dear friends. Today we explore a path that leads us beyond the heavy cloak of loneliness and into the welcoming embrace of inner peace. In the teachings of Buddhism, we learn that true tranquility does not come from the outside world, but emerges from the deepest layers of our own hearts. Often, we look for validation, comfort, or happiness in external circumstances. We wait for a compliment, a text message, or an achievement to remind us that we are worthy. Yet these fleeting moments cannot fill the void that only our inner wisdom can heal. Real peace is never something we purchase or chase. It is something we discover, something that has been quietly present within us all along. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when we cling too tightly to our desires and fears. Loneliness, in many ways, is another form of suffering that can be soothed when we begin to release harmful attachments. To ease this release, we need the gentle practice of mindfulness. When we sit in meditation for even 5 minutes each day, we permit ourselves to observe the waves of thought that roll through our minds. We may notice anxiety or sadness, but we also learn to be a compassionate witness to our own emotions. We see that each feeling is like a cloud drifting across the sky, never permanent, always moving, shifting, and eventually passing away. In this stillness, we grow familiar with our own breath and discover a sanctuary of peace that does not depend on outside acceptance. We start to realize that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Aloneness can be an opportunity to recognize our innate completeness. Another beautiful way to cultivate this inner harmony is through gratitude. In the morning, take a few moments to reflect on 3 blessings in your life. These can be simple things like a warm meal, a comfortable place to rest, or the soothing sound of birds at dawn. This daily ritual invites the light of appreciation into even the dimmest corners of our minds, reminding us of the gifts we already possess. Observing our thoughts without judgment is another key step. Instead of criticizing ourselves or trying to force every thought away, we practice acceptance. In doing so, we come to understand that the mind can be like a restless child. It needs patience, kindness, and gentle guidance rather than harsh rejection. Over time, this approach transforms us. The feelings of emptiness recede, replaced by a sense of wholeness that does not waver with life's ups and downs. Loneliness begins to fade as we cultivate genuine self-compassion and recognize that we are not broken or incomplete. We are part of a vast web of life, connected to all beings by the shared experience of seeking happiness and peace. When we honor this interconnectedness, we feel less alone. Suddenly, the world seems more vibrant, and every small act of kindness or understanding becomes a source of comfort and joy. May these practices be a lamp that brightens the path ahead. With consistent effort, even 5 minutes of meditation or a moment of conscious gratitude can reshape the way we experience ourselves and the world. As we learn to let go of the attachments that fuel our loneliness, we unlock a quiet, unshakable peace. This peace, ever present in the core of our being, is waiting to be remembered and embraced. May you find the courage to look within, the patience to nurture your spirit, and the clarity to recognize the luminous peace that has always been yours. Hello, dear friends. Today we reflect on the beautiful dance between solitude and connection, a balance that calls to mind the Buddha's middle way. In this timeless teaching, true happiness is found not in extremes, but in a harmonious blend of seemingly opposing elements. Solitude, with its calm stillness, offers space for introspection and spiritual growth. Connection, with its warmth, reminds us that we are part of a vast human tapestry, woven with threads of compassion and shared experience. In our search for balance, it is helpful to remember that too much solitude can turn into isolation. When we retreat too deeply into ourselves, we risk losing the rich nourishment of loving relationships and the supportive presence of others. On the other hand, when we become overly reliant on external validation, we surrender our inner freedom and forget the wellspring of peace that resides within. The path of mindful living asks us to hold these truths side by side. Gently and with awareness, imagine carving out moments each day to sit quietly in contemplation. In these precious intervals, you might focus on the breath or reflect on simple joys, allowing any tension or worries to melt away like ice in warm water. During these times, you may come to see that solitude is not loneliness, but a sacred invitation to know yourself more intimately. It is the chance to listen to the inner voice that often gets lost in the commotion of daily life. At the same time, remain open to connection, reach out to loved ones, share a meal in good company, or listen wholeheartedly to a friend's story without the distraction of your own thoughts. Meaningful relationships serve as mirrors, reflecting our capacity for empathy and generosity. When we connect from a space of mindful presence, our interactions become more than casual exchanges. They become a profound way to deepen our compassion for ourselves and for all beings. In this exploration, we discover that we do not have to choose between solitude and connection. They complement each other, offering balance in life's tapestry. One brings clarity and self-awareness. The other brings support and community. As you walk this path, notice moments when you feel pulled in one direction or the other. Observe with kind curiosity. Ask yourself if you need a few minutes of quiet reflection or if it is time to reach out and share your heart. The middle way teaches that the richest form of happiness arises when we honor both our need for personal insight and our desire for heartfelt companionship. By staying anchored in mindfulness, we avoid the extremes of isolation or dependence. We discover a vibrant sense of wholeness that shines through our experiences. Whether we're alone under the stars or laughing with a dear friend, may these reflections inspire you to cherish both inner silence and heartfelt connection. May they guide you toward a life that feels truly whole, rich, and deeply fulfilling. This is the radiant promise of the middle way, calling us to step forward in balance, love, and profound understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Hello, dear friends. Today we turn our attention to loneliness, a feeling that can be both heavy and enlightening. In the midst of our most isolated moments, loneliness asks us to look inward, to examine the stories we tell ourselves, and to question the illusions that keep us apart from our deeper truth. Though the silence may feel daunting, it holds a quiet invitation to awaken our hearts and reconnect with life in a more profound way. In Buddhism, we learn that suffering is not a flaw of the human condition, but an opportunity to see reality more clearly. The story of Kisagotami is a powerful example of this. She lost her beloved child and, overwhelmed by grief, pleaded with the Buddha to bring her child back to life. Instead of turning her away, he asked her to collect a mustard seed from any household that had never experienced death. Kisagotami went from door to door, but every family she encountered had known loss. She came to realize that suffering is universal. This realization became her teacher, guiding her to accept her grief and then transform it into compassion and understanding. Just like Kisagotami, we can take comfort in knowing that we are not alone in our struggles. Though our sorrow may feel intensely personal, countless others have walked similar paths. This shared humanity is what binds us together. It reminds us that, even in our darkest hours, there is a thread of connection uniting our hearts. In Buddhism, this realization unfolds through mindfulness and compassion. By gently observing our thoughts and emotions, we begin to see their transient nature. We realize that pain, loneliness, and even joy are constantly flowing and changing, much like clouds passing across the sky. When we allow ourselves to fully feel these emotions without judgment, we open the door to a deeper form of healing. Cultivating compassion in moments of loneliness can soften our hearts toward ourselves and others. A simple act of kindness, a quiet smile, or a caring word can create ripples of warmth that extend far beyond what we can see. When we choose to approach life with awareness, we discover that each breath ties us to the larger tapestry of existence. So, the next time you feel loneliness closing in, take a moment to pause, breathe gently, and remember Kisagotami's story. Let her journey remind you that suffering is not your burden to carry alone. Instead, it is a gateway to unity with all beings, an invitation to transform your pain into empathy and to find solace in the knowledge that you are part of something greater than yourself. May you walk this path with courage, remembering that loneliness can be a catalyst for profound growth and wisdom. In our vast, interconnected universe, you are never truly alone. Let this truth be a lamp that guides you toward renewed hope, peaceful acceptance, and a heart that remains open to love and healing for yourself and for all beings everywhere.